Discover how an amazing Italian mafia boss exposed harassment with one surprising threat. Mia Santoro stepped into the law firm's gleaming lobby, the polished marble floors reflecting the glints of the city lights peeking through the tall windows. As an associate lawyer, she had expected a fierce battle of wits and a pursuit of justice, but she quickly discovered something more treacherous lurking in the shadows. The partner, Vincent Capelli, with his polished charm and hidden malice, had transformed her dreams into a living nightmare. His relentless harassment came wrapped in whispers, slurs, and threats, a calculated game to bend her will and crush her spirit. The fear of tarnishing her proud Italian-American family's legacy gnawed at her. Could she ever muster the courage to stand against him? Mia's spirit felt battered as she navigated the office politics. Her colleagues, too hesitant to offer support, murmured behind closed doors, often stealing glances at her when they thought she wasn't looking. The air was thick with contempt, a venomous soup of ambition, betrayal, and survival. She often questioned whether she was just another pawn in this merciless chess game. The image of her family, bustling around the dinner table, filled with laughter and shared stories, haunted her thoughts. Would they understand her internal battle, or would they see her as weak? The dread of their disappointment clung to her like a second skin. As days turned into weeks, each encounter with Vincent revived the sharp pang of anxiety. The way his gaze roamed, the way his words dripped with menace, etched scars of helplessness deep within her. She felt her heart race and her hands tremble, as though her body betrayed her will to fight. Yet, it was a late-night conversation with Luigi "Lucky" Carlo, a man who had lived on the fringes of the law, respected yet feared, that lit a flicker of defiance in her. His familiarity with the darkness of power and influence stirred something dormant within her. "Mia," he spoke, voice low and steady, "real strength comes from confronting the monster, not running from it. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Mia plunged into the whirlpool of resolve and doubt. The thought of confronting Vincent was both exhilarating and terrifying. The moment drew closer, and with each passing second, she felt the strands of fear entwine tighter around her throat. Will he destroy me? An array of scenarios raced through her mind, each more gruesome than the last. The desperate choice loomed: protect her family's honor or sacrifice her self-worth, tearing down the already fragile edifice of her integrity. When the time finally came, her heart thundered in her chest, the air felt electric as she stepped into Vincent's office. Words caught in her throat, panic seizing her resolve. The confrontation spiraled, a cyclone of simmering anger and trembling desperation, but just as hope began to wane, she caught sight of Lucky's unwavering gaze from the doorway. As he entered, the fabric of her intertwining fate with his destiny became palpable. Would she gather the strength to transcend the layers of fear and confront the darkness, or would she remain shackled to a legacy of silence? The unrelenting tension in the room coiled tighter as she faced her greatest battle yet, one that would redefine who she was and what she stood for. Mia inhaled sharply, her chest constricting as she locked eyes with Vincent. He sat behind his desk, a tableau of serenity masked by predatory delight. "What do you want, Mia?" he asked, his voice silky, yet weighted with menace. She had imagined this moment for weeks, crafting her words like an artist preparing a masterpiece. Now, they slipped through her fingers like sand. "Enough," she finally said, her voice steadier than she anticipated. The room vibrated with unspoken tension, the silence stretching out like a taut wire. Vincent lounged back in his chair, the amusement flickering across his face. This was a game for him, and she felt like a novice playing poker against a seasoned champion. "Is that a threat?" he replied, amusement deepening his smirk. Her stomach twisted, he was reveling in her discomfort, twisting her resolve. "No, it's a promise," she retorted, surprising herself with the conviction that now anchored her words. A fleeting smile brushed across her lips, bolstered by the belief that perhaps she did possess a kernel of strength after all, one that could withstand his onslaught. Vincent leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Promises are easily broken, Mia. What have you got that I should fear?" That question ignited something within her, an ember of resilience long buried beneath layers of self-doubt. "You may have influence, Vincent, but I have the truth, and that's more powerful than any of your lies." Each word felt like a dagger thrown with precision. For a moment, the room echoed with her unyielding spirit, challenging his composure. He shifted, the mirth fading from his expression replaced by cold suspicion. "Truth? Is that what you think will save you?" His laughter sang with derision. "I can make all that inconvenient for you." His threats hung heavy in the air, laced with the kind of power that made her stomach drop. She could almost see her family, her parents' faces twisted in disappointment, her mother's sigh, a resigned acceptance of her failure. Torn between fear and defiance, her resolve faltered momentarily. But then, she remembered Lucky's words, echoing fiercely in her mind. "Confront the monster." With that thought, Mia wrapped her fingers around the cooling metal of her pen, her daily weapon turned peace offering in this life-and-death conversation. "I am not afraid of you, Vincent," she declared, her voice quelling. "And I will no longer remain your victim. You underestimate my network. The very people you think are loyal to you will see the truth when I reveal it." His sneer became a grimace, and she felt herself gain momentum. It wasn't just about her anymore, it was a stance for all the voiceless and oppressed, a rebellion against the unchallenged darkness he inhabited. Her heart swelled with purpose, an ember growing into a fire. Vincent stood, pacing the space like a predator denied its prey. "You think this ends with a few words? You have no idea the forces you're provoking. You're playing with fire, Mia." "Then watch me dance," she quipped defiantly, the spark of her newfound strength illuminating the path ahead. This confrontation was just the beginning, she would not fade into silence. As she walked out of the office, the adrenaline coursed through her veins, flooding her with certainty. She was no longer an internal prisoner but an architect of her fate. Each step on the marble floors felt lighter, the atmosphere crackling with unspoken power. A part of her wondered if she had sparked a war with Vincent, but that uncertainty was dwarfed by a burgeoning sense of liberation. Returning to her desk, she paused only long enough to let the truth settle. This fight was far from over. She knew the game had just begun. But Lucky's voice emerged within her mind again, solid and firm, "Find the truth, it will set you free." As she leaned against her desk, contemplating her burgeoning strategy, Mia's thoughts drifted back to the symbolism of her family's dining table. The laughter held there would resonate once she conquered her demons. With a plan forming, she felt the first flickers of agency touch her heart. But would the repercussions of her confrontation ignite a flame that she couldn't extinguish, unfolding a tempest far greater than she anticipated? The next move would reveal just how consistent her courage would hold against the tide. Mia's heart raced as she settled back into her routine at the office, yet the atmosphere around her had changed. The weight of her confrontation with Vincent lingered, thickening the air. She quickly shuffled through emails and calls, but her mind was more consumed with strategizing than routine tasks. The unyielding grip of fear had given way to a mix of purpose and resolve. Closing her eyes, she visualized the network she could leverage. Each connection she had cultivated over the years, every small rivalry and alliance, shimmered like threads in her memory. Mia recognized that she wasn't alone, she had allies who shared her disdain for Vincent's oppressive grip on their workplace. The thought solidified her resolve, it was time to expose the truth, not just for herself, but for everyone who lived in fear. She snapped her eyes open, her mind racing with plans. First, she needed information. The truth was powerful, but it must be substantiated with evidence. If Vincent underestimated her previously, she wouldn't allow him the same ignorance a second time. Swiping her pen from her desk, she poised herself for action, not to build a weapon, but to draft a compelling narrative that would draw the line between his actions and their consequences. Mia decided to call an old colleague, Rachel, who had left the firm only a few months prior but had extensive knowledge of Vincent's manipulative tactics. Rachel had left under a cloud of discomfort than overt harassment, but Mia sensed she would sympathize with her cause. After a few rings, Rachel picked up, her voice warm but tinged with uncertainty when Mia presented her intention. "You're going after Vincent? Are you sure about this? He has a way of turning things ugly," Rachel cautioned, her tone laced with concern. Mia's resolve shifted into a fierce determination. "I can't sit back and watch him manipulate people anymore. We have to shed light on this, Rachel. It's time to hold him accountable." Mia could almost feel Rachel mull over the idea on the other end. There was silence tinged with nostalgia and trepidation. "I'll help you, but we need to tread carefully, Mia. He won't play fair." Mia nodded as if Rachel could see her. A slow smile crept across her face. She had taken the first step in constructing her defense. With that, a wave of adrenaline surged within her. She was gathering strength, forming a coalition not by abstract numbers, but by genuine relationships. As she hung up, a tickle of doubt squeezed through her confidence. What if Vincent retaliated? What if he knew she was conspiring against him? In the corners of her mind, those questions gnawed at her, yet they barely extinguished the fire of ambition she now harbored. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus on the mission at hand. Gathering information was just the first act of a play that required her utmost attention. She started drafting messages and reaching out discreetly to others who might provide insights or support. Even the thought of confrontation, absent in her previous stances, now carried an intoxicating potential for liberation. But what would she uncover? Would Vincent's fortress crumble under the weight of truth? Mia felt the days stretching out before her like an uncharted map, full of twists and turns, fertile ground for her ambitions. Her next move would involve weaving her narrative into something more substantial, a story that could fight back. As she glanced around her office, the visible tension of the workplace shifted like shadows as colleagues whispered, oblivious to the transformation brewing amidst them. One more confrontation awaited her, the looming threat of revealing what waited beneath the surface. She could feel the stakes rising, a new game unfolding where her resolve would be tested deeper than before. The truth was close, but with it came a reckoning. What would she sacrifice to obtain it? The answers lay just beyond her reach, tangled within the looming shadows of Vincent's empire. Would she stand firm and expose his deceptions, or would the intimidation sever her grip on the truth? Only time would tell what lay ahead in this perilous pursuit. Mia woke up the next morning with the faintest glimmer of determination illuminating her spirit, but it was quickly clouded by the reality of her situation. She didn't just need to prepare for confrontation, she needed a strategy so meticulously crafted that there would be no room for Vincent's retaliatory tactics. The impression of bravado she had shown the day before felt hollow in the stark morning light, and insecurity fluttered in her chest. She needed to elevate her game. In the shower, she absently worked through various scenarios in her head. How could she get Vincent's trusted allies to see the truth? The thought of addressing his supporters directly felt risky. They had careers at stake, and under the weight of his control, they might not be as open to her ideas as Rachel had been. What she needed was to expose the cracks in Vincent's carefully constructed facade without making herself the target. Sitting on the edge of her bed, she grabbed her notebook, capturing the urgency of her thoughts. She decided that her first step had to be building credibility. Her own case needed to be solid. If Rachel had only provided insights into Vincent's background, Mia realized she would need more voices echoing her narrative. She began listing potential colleagues, those who might have faced their own grievances but had been too fearful to speak up. At work, she navigated the halls with purpose, her senses heightened. Every whisper and exchanged glance felt weighted. Through the course of the day, she approached a few coworkers, engaging them casually at first, carefully gauging their comfort levels. With each conversation, she gauged their perspectives on Vincent's oppressive style. She listened intently, all the while threading her intentions beneath the surface. Sooner than she expected, she struck gold. One of the colleagues she chatted with, Jorge, had knowledge of some of Vincent's misdeeds. He had witnessed the way Vincent manipulated project outcomes, withholding credit from team members whose work he deemed dispensable. Mia's heart raced at the receptive energy pulsing through their dialogue. This was the break she desperately needed. Jorge was frustrated by the status quo, and with a few more nudges, she felt confident that he could join her cause. In an unexpectedly candid moment, Jorge confessed, "I've kept quiet because I thought it was just easier to keep my head down, but this has gone too far." He's toxic. Candor ignited a spark in Mia. They spent the next hour outlining their shared experiences and establishing a game plan, the laughter and adrenaline making them forget just how precarious the situation was. As Mia returned to her desk, satisfaction lingered. She could feel herself metamorphosing from a passive observer of her environment into an architect of change. Yet the elation didn't last long. Doubt clawed its way back to the forefront of her mind. Jorge's South involvement could place him on Vincent's radar, and she couldn't shake the feeling that they would need to double down on their efforts to protect him and protect themselves. The urgency to act pressed onto her chest. She sent a discreet message to Rachel, sharing her progress and the names of a few colleagues who had shown interest in speaking out. Even as the screen glowed brightly in her dimly lit office, Mia couldn't fully shake the dread that accompanied her newfound momentum. What would happen if they failed? What if Vincent struck back harder than they anticipated? The shadows darkened in her mind, merging into a more powerful awareness that the battle ahead wouldn't be simple. Each contact would need careful handling, each conversation weighed for risks. Every connection made her path entwined with potential dangers, a thickening web creeping closer. Mia leaned back in her chair, biting her lip in thought. She wasn't merely gathering allies, she was marching toward a confrontation of immense proportions. The stakes were rising, and the clock was ticking. What path would she choose when it became clear that choices carried consequences she might not be prepared to face? In that moment, the stakes solidified. She was not merely fighting against Vincent's deceit, she was beginning to unravel a story that could redefine how power worked in her office. But would she be ready for the full truth she might uncover about herself in the process? The pieces were moving into place, and the urgency of action weighed against the risk of rebellion hung palpably in the air. Would she be strong enough to face the darkness that loomed ahead? She could feel it closing in. With her heart pounding, Mia wondered just how far she was willing to go when the moment came for direct confrontation. Mia paced in her small office, the rhythm of her thoughts quickening with each lap. She needed to channel this growing energy, to transform anxiety into a driving force instead of allowing it to gnaw at her resolve. The very walls echoed her uncertainty, yet now they felt like a boxing ring, the stakes mounting with every breath. What if tomorrow brought the confrontation she dreaded? What if Vincent escalated his tactics, striking at her or at Jorge before they could organize their growing circle of supporters? She forced herself to sit and breathe deeply, summoning clarity to her chaotic mind. It was time for a clear strategy. In the quiet, she imagined herself standing before a room full of her colleagues, people who had been silenced too long, sharing the truth and rallying them to her cause. Yet, the image also threw doubt at her. Would they stand up and fight with her, or would fear reign once more? Mia opened her notebook, its pages marked with cursive notes and thoughts ruffled by the strong coffee she had long since downed. She flipped to the back, where she had begun drafting an outline for a potential meeting, a covert gathering where like-minded individuals could come together. The thought ignited a flicker of excitement within her. Each name on the list was a potential voice, a possible ally waiting to be awakened from silence. As she scrawled ideas, the clinging notion of personal risk seeped back in. Each decision weighed heavily, every connection made her more vulnerable. The fear of betrayal loomed, but the thought of remaining an internal prisoner to Vincent's reign of toxic control suffocated her courage. She was at a crucial juncture, to fight for integrity or retreat into obscurity. In the following days, Mia expertly navigated the office landscape, channeling her unease into objective interactions. With Jorge beside her, she led whispered conversations in the break room, gauging alliances and testing waters. Occasionally, snippets of solidarity fluttered through the air, others were brave enough to nod in agreement with Jorge's disclosures of Vincent's injustices. Yet, on each nod, a chill accompanied the realization that they were now potentially targets as well. One afternoon, their mood shifted when Mia overheard Vincent shouting at a junior staffer across the hallway. The scene was stark, the juxtaposition of his commanding presence against the young woman's trembling frame a mirror to the fear that had haunted her for months. Rage bubbled beneath Mia's surface, igniting a fierce determination she hadn't entirely acknowledged until now. She couldn't remain a passive observer any longer. That incident stirred something deep within her, compelling her to act for change rather than hope for it. With newfound grit, she approached Jorge later that day, proposing a structured plan to gather evidence against Vincent, turning sources of information into actionable steps. Jorge raised an eyebrow, intrigued but cautious. "What's your end game, though?" he asked, skepticism mingling with curiosity. "We don't know how far he'll go to maintain control. Are we ready for this?" Mia stared at him, the question tearing through her heart. In that moment, the reality of what lay ahead crashed into her thoughts like an overwhelming wave. She had already set the pieces in motion, but could she truly stomach the full weight of what might come next? "Maybe it's not just about exposing him," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "Maybe it's about reclaiming our own stories, finding strength in numbers. For so long, we've allowed fear to dictate our actions. It's time to change that narrative." As she spoke, conviction tingled in her limbs, illuminating the darkness that had overshadowed her efforts thus far. Yet, the juxtaposition of hope and fear lurked in the back of her mind. Would they truly find a way to rally against Vincent's reign? Mia's heart raced at the thought of what lay ahead, knowing they were on the precipice of a battle that would either restore some semblance of sanity to their workplace or expose them to the wrath they feared. With determination coursing through her veins, Mia clutched her notebook tightly, acknowledging that the next step she took would determine not only the outcome of her conflict with Vincent but also the very essence of her own identity. As she visualized the concept of unity taking form, she also questioned if she was ready to face the storm. The time had come for a reckoning, and Mia knew she would need to confront not only Vincent but also the ghosts of her own doubts. A deep breath steeled her resolve. Tomorrow, they would take a step towards that confrontation. Underneath the surface of her commitment, though, a swelling uncertainty remained. What buried truths would surface when the light finally pierced through the darkness? Mia awoke the next morning with a restless energy thrumming through her. It was as if she was fueled by a powerful current, propelling her towards the confrontation she had envisioned. Yet beneath that urgency lay a simmering dread. Would today mark the first step towards liberation, or would it lead to ruin? After a quick breakfast, she sat at her cluttered desk and reviewed her notes, the pages alive with her scribbled insights. Ideas sprouted like weeds in spring, each one oozing promise and peril. She deliberated over various approaches, her mind weaving in and out of potential responses to Vincent's expected inequities. Would a confrontation work, or was she ready to compile evidence quietly instead? Each considered tactic offered a glimpse into possible futures, each more fraught with risk than the last. Jorge arrived shortly after, his demeanor a mixture of anticipation and concern. "You ready for this?" he asked, leaning against her desk, arms crossed tightly over his chest. The confidence that usually marked his tone felt muted today, and it struck a chord with Mia. "Ready as I'll ever be," she replied, forcing a smile that lacked warmth. The truth was she didn't feel ready at all. A cascade of self-doubt threatened to drown her aspirations. The question echoed, what if they failed? As they moved towards the staging area for their covert meeting, Mia felt the weight of her resolve bearing down on her. Each step felt choreographed, a dance that could lead to salvation or containment. She looked at Jorge, who offered a reassuring nod, and the sense of camaraderie briefly lit her path. They gathered in a vacant conference room, the windows fogged, allowing no view of the storm brewing outside. The group consisted of a small assembly of her colleagues, most of whom shared a palpable undercurrent of tension. Mia scanned the room, measuring the resilience hiding behind anxious expressions. "Thank you all for coming," she started, her voice surprisingly steady. "I know why we're here, and I know how risky it is. But this is about more than just our jobs. This is about our dignity." As she articulated her thoughts, Mia noticed how her pulse synchronized with the murmurs of agreement rising in the room. There was a force lingering, an intoxicating potential tinged with uncertainty. As she unveiled her plans, spreading out her notes, laying out timelines, and potential witness statements, she observed a mixture of hope and wariness in her audience. The more she talked, the more she peeled back layers of inhibition. For others, her words sparked recognition, her battles resonated like echoes of their own unseen scars. Then came the pivotal moment. "We can expose Vincent, but it requires courage," Mia said, confronting her own fear as she met each gaze squarely. "We must be prepared to support one another through whatever may come." One of her colleagues, Claire, spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if he retaliates? He has friends in high places, we could lose everything." The doubt hung heavily in the room, and Mia felt her heart quicken. "We cannot let fear bind us further," Mia asserted, feeling genuine courage wash over her. Claire's question was real, and it exposed the very core of their resistance. If they didn't act, they remained prisoners within Vincent's toxic environment. They could either embolden themselves together or continue to spiral in their individual despair. But as the discussion heated, Mia's inner thoughts clashed again. Would they indeed stand united when it mattered most? The meeting carried on, but beneath the intellectual strategizing, Mia found herself testing the waters of her own resolve. What hidden depths of strength might she uncover within? Each challenge revealed not only a burgeoning clarity of purpose but a reflection of her evolution, both personally and professionally. She learned to draw from uncertainty, shaping it into determination. Minutes felt like hours, yet the room shifted ever so slightly. There was a spark of belief taking root, though uncertainty still wove through every comment. She sensed an evolving camaraderie, a collective resilience building amidst doubt. Just as the discussion culminated in tentative plans, the door swung open with a threatening bang, silencing everyone. Vincent appeared on the threshold, shadow casting over their gathering, eyes glinting with awareness. Mia's stomach twisted, adrenaline surging through her as she watched him process the gathering of formerly muted voices. The moment had arrived. There was no turning back now. Would they confront the monster head-on or retreat in fear? Mia steeled her breath, preparing to meet the eyes of the very man whose reign they sought to dismantle. Would vulnerability become their strength or their undoing? As Vincent stepped closer, the entire room held its breath, every heartbeat synchronized to the impending clash of wills. Mia's mind raced, flooded with thoughts as Vincent took one deliberate step into the room. His presence transformed the once sacred space into a battleground, tension hanging thick in the air. She could almost hear the collective thoughts, the what now? And what if? Swirling in the silence. Quite the gathering, isn't it? Vincent's voice sliced through the charged atmosphere, dripping with mock amusement. He feigned ignorance, crossing his arms as a predator circles its prey. "Should I be flattered that you're all discussing my management before my very eyes?" A chill ran down Mia's spine, yet she felt an unfamiliar fire rising within her. Here was the man she had spent sleepless nights rallying against, yet in this moment, her fear morphed into an electric kind of resolve. Pushing down the instinct to backpedal, she squared her shoulders, anchoring her gaze on Vincent's indifferent facade. "This isn't just about management," Mia replied, her voice steady, a newfound confidence threading through her words. Each syllable was buoyed by the murmurs around her. "It's about creating a workplace free of hostility, where individuals are valued, not exploited." Vincent's brow arched, amused yet irritated by her unabashed fortitude. "And who do you think you are to challenge me, Mia? You were nobody until today. Just a cog in the machine." His eyes darted around the room, seeking the allies hidden among the walls. Mia could feel the eyes of her colleagues on her, a heavy mix of concern and expectation. This was no longer merely her battle, this was about shared courage. "I'm someone who refuses to stay silent," she shot back, her heart pounding but resolve sharpening. "And I'm not alone in this." Vincent's laugh echoed through the room, a hollow sound that coated the walls with condescension. "You'll wish you had kept quiet. You have no idea who you're dealing with." The threat hung in the air, punctuating the latent fears that had been brewing. But something had shifted within Mia. She could feel the heat of courage coursing through her veins, igniting her sense of purpose. "You may have power, Vincent, but you don't control us. We are not just cogs, and we won't be intimidated by you any longer." As she spoke, she took a step forward, challenging the gravitational pull of Vincent's dominance. The word set off a string of reactions, whispers swept through the group, emboldening others to voice their own grievances. One by one, they rallied behind her statement, igniting a newfound solidarity that mingled with the sense of urgency in the room. For the first time, their voices rose in defiance, battling against the oppression they had learned to accept. "Enough of this," Vincent snapped, his calm facade slipping. He realized he was losing control. "Do you really think a few rebellious voices can change anything? I have resources to crush this frenzy before it even starts." Mia felt her heart race at his response but remained undeterred. "Those resources aren't as powerful as the desire for justice and respect. We won't back down now that we've found our voices." Her statement hung in the air, a challenge unsheathed, much like the Crusaders of old. For a brief moment, the room teetered on a knife's edge, the outcome uncertain. Mia sensed the atmosphere shift, hopes mingled with fears. Inside, she began to question the extent of her readiness. Could she hold her ground not only for herself but for others who would suffer in silence if she faltered? Vincent's displeasure was palpable as he stole a glance at the audience, a hint of uncertainty flashing in his eyes. Each second stretched into eternity. Mia felt the weight of countless unvoiced concerns press against her. Just then, Claire spoke up again, emboldened by Mia's confidence. "We deserve a workplace where we can thrive, not live in fear. We're not spinning in Vincent's madness any longer. You can't scare us into submission." The tide had turned, and with it, the palpable energy shifted. The power that Vincent had wielded for so long now trembled precariously in Mia's hands. Yet the fear still ran deep within, that at any moment, this precarious alliance could shatter. As Mia locked eyes with Vincent, she felt a swell of determination. The time for passive acceptance was over, but there was a lingering question: was this bravery or reckless folly? Had she opened a door to liberation, or had she merely awakened a looming storm? Adrenaline surged once more as Vincent's face darkened, but Mia's resolve remained firm. The battle lines were drawn, and it was time to execute the plan. The confrontation wasn't just about revealing Vincent's betrayals, it would test the resilience of every individual in the room. But as she prepared for the next move, a chilling realization dawned: there would be consequences, immediate and unforgiving. Would they all stand together when their positions were truly threatened? With that unshakable thought, Mia knew the next phase had begun. The storm was brewing, and she could either weather it or let it sweep her away. The atmosphere remained electric, charged with unspoken fears and fledgling hopes. Mia's heart thrummed in sync with the anxious murmurs resonating around her. All eyes fixed on Vincent, each held a spectrum of resolve and fear. The gravity of the confrontation loomed large, and the stakes suddenly became starkly clear. To falter now would mean betraying not just her own beliefs, but those of everyone rallying behind her. Mia inhaled sharply, declaring with certainty, "Every moment you undermine us only fuels the fire for change." Uttering those words felt both liberating and frightening. She had awakened something deep within her, a conviction that her voice could not only challenge the status quo but could also inspire others to reclaim their integrity. The quiet anger around her began to crystallize into a collective purpose. Vincent's face twisted into a mask of defiance, yet there was an undertone of uncertainty behind his bravado. It was as if a crack had formed in the fortress he had so carefully constructed. Mia seized the moment to fortify her own position. She glanced at her coworkers, noting how the expressions of uncertainty were being replaced by expressions of determination. Each of them, including Claire, was stepping onto this battleground armed with their own stories, and she needed to embrace that solidarity. Change is not made by remaining in the shadows. We are here to lift the veil, Mia continued, her voice rising above the noise. She unfolded a piece of paper that had remained hidden in her pocket. It bore a collection of signatures, a petition she had crafted in those frantic hours leading to this crucial confrontation. Each name symbolized a commitment to bring about the transformation they all yearned for. Your tactics are outdated, Vincent, Mia challenged, extending the paper outward. We're not asking for permission. We're demanding what is rightfully ours. Vincent's fury materialized like a flash of lightning. You think you can overturn everything with signatures? His mocking tone attempted to stifle her momentum, yet it fell flat against the groundswell behind her. I think we can overturn what you've built on fear and exploitation, Mia shot back, feeling emboldened with each word. Every second felt like a small victory, and slowly, the rhythm of her heartbeat began to synchronize with her emerging power. As Vincent's frustration boiled, Mia felt an unexpected shiver of vulnerability. The voices of her colleagues, once trembling, now reached a fervor that spelled a new beginning. Inspiration sparked within her. It wasn't just about the signature, it was about visible solidarity. Let me tell you something important, Vincent, she declared, her confidence swelling. You might control the flows of this business, but power cannot stem from fear alone, it must be forged in respect and integrity. This was more than a battle against an oppressive boss, it was about reshaping the fabric of their work environment. Vincent stood paralyzed, the weight of her words weighing heavily as if they were a reality he could no longer deny. Mia had spoken truths he was powerless to refute. Each breath deepened her conviction, allowing her to see the layers of resilience unfurling within her colleagues. Yet a small voice in the back of her mind nagged at her this was just the beginning. Could they all hold their ground when repercussions inevitably followed? There had to be a strategy beyond simply challenging Vincent. Mia knew that without a well-structured plan, the collective momentum could dissipate into nothingness. Just as that tension hung in the air like fog before a storm, Mia felt a simmering urgency to transition into action. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from an invigorating thrill. The means to dismantle the control Vincent had wielded rested in their ability to organize further. There was strength in strategy. I propose a meeting, an open one, Mia added, allowing herself to be pragmatic. Let us outline our grievances and suggest our changes. If we are to reclaim our dignity, we need to map our path forward. This isn't just my battle, it's for each of us. She locked eyes with some of the employees, gauging their reactions. She could see resolve blooming in front of her. But Vincent's cold smile returned. A meeting? You think I'll let you choose the terms? He sneered, his voice darkening. This will all end badly for you. Mia felt a familiar unease creep in, yet she stood firm. This would not be a simple march to victory. There were risks ahead, hurdles to navigate, and ultimately, decisions to confront that could alter the course of her and her colleagues' lives. With a sharp breath, she steeled herself. Maybe, but it's a risk worth taking. The storm was gathering its strength, and within the heart of that storm, Mia was ready to navigate the winds of change. The real confrontation loomed ahead, and no matter the outcome, one thing was certain, there was no turning back now. The consequences of their actions would challenge everything she had learned about herself and her place in the world. But was she truly prepared for what lay ahead? As anticipation bubbled beneath the surface, she realized that now was the moment to fully harness her potency, not only for herself but for all those who felt helpless under Vincent's thumb. With her heart racing and the stakes rising, she pondered her next step. The future was unwritten, but one question echoed within her mind: could they genuinely become the change they wished to see, or would they crumble under the pressure and fall back into the shadows? Mia's heart pounded as she stepped away from the precipice of confrontation, her mind racing with possibilities and challenges ahead. The hashtag of change was no longer just a whisper in her heart, it had become a roaring wave. Yet, she felt a chilling awareness of the stakes involved. She needed a strategy, a means to assure her colleagues that their potential for freedom wasn't merely a fleeting dream, but could be transformed into a tangible reality. Beneath the fervor of her declaration, shadows of doubt loomed. Did she truly have the capacity to lead a movement against Vincent? He was a master of manipulation, wielding contempt like a weapon. You have to be prepared, she reminded herself, sitting alone in the small break room, staring at the empty coffee pot as her mind spiraled into a flurry of questions. What if he retaliates against us personally? What if with a deep breath, Mia grabbed a notepad, flipping to a clean page, and started to jot down ideas? We need clear objectives, she wrote. 1. Identify grievances. 2. Propose actionable changes. 3. Prepare for pushback. The act of transferring her thoughts onto paper helped steady her swirling anxiety. Impulsively, she added a fourth point, define what we risk. As she scribbled those words, she realized that understanding their risks could fortify their resolve. It could also illuminate their choices. Each name on that petition was not merely a signature, it represented real lives, aspirations, and an unwavering desire for respect. She envisioned pushing back against Vincent's verbal darts and isolation tactics, but how? Turning the tide meant galvanizing the momentum she had sparked. Mia glanced out the break room window, where dark clouds rolled in against the backdrop of an afternoon sky, mirroring her turbulent thoughts. Just as the heaviness outside signaled an impending storm, her internal turbulence heralded a scrimmage of self-doubt and ambition. She thought of Claire and the others' faces of employees who had sat on the fence until now. If they were to channel their anxiety into unified action, the forthcoming meeting couldn't be conventional, it needed to symbolize a bold shift. Gathering her thoughts, Mia resolved to prepare not only her agenda but also her speeches. She needed to articulate how their collective voice could shape a safer environment and dismantle the toxic culture that Vincent perpetuated. The meeting would be a testament to their dedication to the cause. Suddenly, a burst of inspiration struck her like lightning. What if each of us shared our stories? Those personal accounts could form a powerful collective narrative that Vincent could not dismiss. Heartache, anger, and hope all braided together could create a tapestry of strength they would present as their case. It would be raw, authentic, and utterly compelling. Mia spent the rest of the afternoon crafting her thoughts into a cohesive speech, practicing in front of the mirror. She made sure every sentence landed with conviction, channeling the stories of her colleagues' struggles. The more she rehearsed, the less daunting the prospect of facing Vincent felt. She was not just defending her own right to speak, she was elevating the voices of many. But beneath her resolve lingered the unease that had manifested that day. How would Vincent react to an open confrontation? Would he attempt to undermine their stories by discrediting them publicly? The thought sent tendrils of fear coiling in her stomach. Yet, this fear was no match for the rush of excitement coursing through her veins. Not just her hope for change, but a growing sense of competence buoyed her. She realized she had the ability to harness the latent power of her coworkers. They were not just her colleagues, they were allies in this fight, and together they could upset the status quo. Determined, Mia resolved to meet with Claire and others to share her ideas, and the more she considered it, the more her confidence bloomed. They would need support numbers, but they would also need the power of emotional resonance. Before she stepped out of the break room, she paused, glancing back at the remnants of her notes. As she concluded her commitment to leading the charge, she felt a sense of urgency pulse through her. This wouldn't merely be a confrontation, it was a moment to reclaim their identities. But was she prepared for every possible outcome? As she brushed past the break room door, the air felt thick with expectations. Mia knew deep down that the hardest battles often come with the most profound transformations. And as she made her way to gather her colleagues, she couldn't shake the question lingering at the back of her mind: what would happen when the time came to face not just Vincent's fury, but her own deeper fears about leadership. Mia stood before her colleagues, the air humming with a mixture of tension and anticipation. Today was the day they would finally confront Vincent Capelli, but more importantly, it would be the day they reclaimed their voices. She felt a surge of adrenaline wash over her as she glanced at the faces around her, expression mixed with anxiety and hope. They were united, and in that unity, Mia found an inner strength she had yet to fully recognize. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice steady despite the knot of nerves in her stomach. "Today is not just about my fight, it's about all of us. It's time to stand up for our dignity and demand the respect we deserve." She sensed the weight of their fears manifesting in the silence that followed. But as she continued, her confidence grew, bolstered by the shared commitment in the room. She unveiled her plan, a proposal for an open meeting with Vincent. As she outlined their grievances, urging her colleagues to consider how each private struggle mirrored the collective experience of being undermined by Vincent's behavior, she saw embers of determination flicker to life across the faces of her peers. Mia encouraged each of them to share their stories, connecting the dots from personal harm to the larger narrative of oppression. Each voice contributed to a powerful tapestry, revealing how Vincent's tactics had sown fear and resentment, leaving their workplace shrouded in toxicity. As they spoke, Mia felt her insecurities start to wane, the collective chorus of grievances grew louder, an undeniable force demanding recognition. Then it was Mia's turn. She felt the room pulse with anticipation as she shared her own story. "When I entered this firm, I wanted to build a legacy, not be afraid to walk the halls," she said, her voice rising with passion. She recounted her early days with a sense of pride and how Vincent's behavior had stripped her of that pride. Each word resonated, not just with her, but echoed the struggles of others. As her story unfolded, Mia saw flickers of solidarity, her colleagues leaned in, nodding as they found common ground with her experiences. The atmosphere transformed, shifting from fear to empowerment. She urged them to envision a workplace not defined by intimidation but a space of respect and collaboration. "Let us not forget," Mia emphasized, "every time we choose silence, we allow fear to win. But together, we can break that cycle. This isn't just about standing up to Vincent, it's about changing how we work together and upholding one another's dignity." With each elated expression, Mia felt her fears replaced by a burgeoning sense of collective strength. They decided to formally approach Vincent, ready to outline their commitment to change and their demand for a harassment-free workplace. The group rallied behind the idea and even formulated a robust action plan. She was no longer the timid associate lawyer caught in a web of fear, she was a leader, a facilitator of change with a newfound clarity. The next day, they would confront Vincent and present their narrative, and Mia felt ready to navigate whatever storm would ensue. But as the last voice echoed, a whisper of doubt crept in. Would they truly stand firm when faced with Vincent's potential retaliation? Would their resolution withstand the test? Yet as she looked around the room, filled with determination, she realized that true growth often arose from taking risks. She had actualized her potential, not only for herself but for every oppressed voice in that room. Mia felt a swelling pride, their courage had enabled her to shed her own burdens of grand expectations and self-doubt. As they agreed on next steps, Mia reflected on her journey, from silent suffering to assertive advocacy. She had faced her demons and emerged stronger, wiser, and equipped to stand up for herself and her colleagues. It was no longer just about winning a battle, it was about forging a new path of respect and community. Tomorrow they would confront Vincent, but today, they had transformed their fear into a unified front. There was no turning back now, what lay ahead was change, and Mia had become a steward of that change. Amid this electrifying atmosphere, one thought resonated: Mia was not merely surviving, she was thriving. The anticipation of the confrontation invigorated her, not with fear, but with purpose. As she reached for her phone to confirm the meeting with Vincent, a single thought charged through her: this is her moment, and she was ready. Now it's your turn. Don't miss out on the extraordinary tales of transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support narratives that matter. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Mia's journey and what might come next. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Stories of personal overcoming thrive only with your help. Don't wait even one more second.